Good evening and welcome to episode 25 of the Above Average Joe's podcast. I'm Kyle, and with me as always is Matt, but
Howdy.
unfortunately our other brethren, Mr. Degelman, is not with us tonight. He got tied up with some important business and unfortunately is unable to join us, at least at the moment. Hopefully he can join us later, but we're not sure. I guess I always start off by asking Matt how his week was, so we'll start there.
Well, I've been pretty damn good, actually. I just been doing projects and having fun. I was off work all last week, so I spent a whole bunch of time sanding my mandolin and doing some other building and fun stuff. So yeah, it's been a great week as far as just putzing around, which is something that I love to do. So,
Right on.
how about you?
I finally got some mixing done, and I got some video making on the go, and yeah, I say things are. The week started off pretty good, I guess, after a pretty decent weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that was good.
Mm-hmm.
But the show's going to be a little different tonight, folks, and I really encourage you to comment and let us know your thoughts, because we're going to try and tie it to sports, but really it is a much larger issue, and me and Matt think it's everybody should be talking about it, and we just should talk about it. So I guess why it's in the news right now is because of what happened to George Floyd in the States, has set off a chain reaction of events that as of, let's see, an hour and a half ago, the President of the United States basically has sicked the military on anybody who protests anything except if you don't want to wear a mask and hold a gun, then those are peaceful protesters. But I digress. Matt, let's just start with you, I guess. I don't even know where we're going to go with this, but I just want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's really hard to stomach both the events that led up to it, and it's multiple events. It's not just this one thing. This was just happened to be the catalyst, right, or the straw that broke the camel's back, or the
one in many
mall
lines of catalysts.
the extra ounce that allowed it to achieve that critical mass, right? But whatever it is, yeah, there's a tinder bomb exploding there right now, and both the events leading up to it and the reactions to it are. I mean, I'm not going to say that protests are horrifying. Protests are not horrifying. Protests can be absolutely brilliant, but at the same time, we see way too often that protests become ugly because they're about expressions, right? And it can be a dangerous thing sometimes for those in power to be questioned. And it's unfortunate because it's not supposed to be like that. I mean, the whole purpose of a democratic society is that we're supposed to be able to have different opinions, different ideas, and still live in the same world together. But yeah, this is a really touchy subject because it's not like it's new. It's been going on forever and ever and ever. Ask
400
any
years.
black person.
400 years.
But you know what? It's the same conversation we've been having since at least that I can remember, since like the LA riots in the 80s.
90s. Was it? No, 80s.
Was it 90s? Early 90s? Late 80s?
92, I think.
Okay. It was high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at least since then, it's been this same conversation all the time, right? This is unacceptable. We have to do something, and then nothing happens, right?
Nothing gets done.
And the thing is, what the hell do you do? Because I don't know what to do. I don't know what can be done because I have no idea what this experience is like, right? And that's one of the hardest parts about it is trying to feel some sort of a sense of empathy when I can absolutely grasp that I have no idea what some of these people are going through, right? Like I've never had it that way growing up. And so
No,
it's horrible, and we have to change what we're doing. I think it's important to do the little things personally, like for one, understand that we all have racial biases that are inbred in us, and through our upbringings and through culture, and only through deliberate changing of that or shaping of that idea are we ever going to really truly turn that away. And I don't remember this discussion ever happening a lot when I was a kid. I don't remember growing up in a particularly racist household, but I was a white kid. I mean, I was whiter than white. We had one black kid in our class. And I think we had about 3 black kids. I think it was Dion and her 2 sisters in the whole school, right? So I really don't get the black experience, and I can't pretend to ever have. But I think it's important that that we talk to our kids about it, and that we make sure that they're aware that these sorts of things are out there, and that they can try to correct for them, and that they can try to be more conscious and more accepting and more just more aware of racial issues than maybe I was growing up, right? Because we didn't talk about it enough. And I think that's the only thing that I know for sure that I can do is talk about it and push the fuck back whenever I see racism.
well, that's certainly a good start. Where I see, especially in the States, where I see there needs to be an, I want to say immediate change, but they've had plenty of time to make these changes. What Trump is doing by clamping down with more force on people who already have a problem with feeling that they don't get justice from the policing community, you're going to fix this problem by laying down the hammer harder. The problem stems back to every time something happens like this, nothing ever happens to the cop. They protect each other, just like the clergy do. Instead of pointing out where there's problems, getting rid of the people who are the problems, or rehabilitating them, whatever you need to do, if you allow it to continue, it will continue.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand how having clampdowns with more force and showing that you're the law and order president, how that helps the situation at all. Is he trying to stoke a fire? Like that's I know I'm getting kind of, I'm gonna go off tangent a lot. This is all happening like fairly real time, and it's kind of historic in a bad way. And if you don't start with the relationship between law enforcement and the black community, and I'd even say, and I don't think it's anywhere the same case here, but I would say there's probably similarities between the Native community and the police force in Canada.
100%.
Exactly.
And, well, I mean, not just that. I mean, racism in general, right, in society. Those kind of attitudes and stuff, right?
But
so
those
I mean,
are the people.
I think it's almost an analog, really.
Right, but racism just in a normal day-to-day fashion. What's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody's going to get something bad yelled at them. These are the people who are supposed to be there to protect everyone, and I don't know how that must feel to live like you have no protection, like you've got nobody, right? Mm-hmm. Like the police are supposed to be there to protect you. So if they're not there to protect you who is.
Mm-hmm.
And they wonder why things are how they are.
Yeah. Absolutely, you're right. The militarization is certainly not equal to any type of de-escalation or de-escalation. Sorry, I think when you look at the police forces in that problem specifically, I mean, you got to understand that the whole issue comes from a much bigger place of origin. But I mean, in this case, we've got a raging fire, and you need to put out that fire, right? And I think one of the biggest things that we need to turn around in our police force, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there are so many great police officers out there,
There is.
all over the place, but there's way too often, and I see it, and I think it just it's because you see the worst of people every day, right? You don't get to go on these goodwill missions and that sort of thing unless you happen to be really lucky and become a community resource officer or something like that. You know, you get to deal with the kind of the worst of the worst every single day, and so you get really jaded, and it becomes an us versus them. And it's when you start to take that attitude of policing where you are, it's when it's versus your enemy. I mean, it seems like it's almost a military action against an enemy, as opposed to civilians who have been granted special powers to assist in ensuring fellow civilians obey the law.
Right, when you're talking like things like quotas. When police forces have quotas, that's a bad idea.
That's as well. I mean, that's as fundamentally flawed as for-profit prisons, but that's a different discussion.
Is it really though? Is it really? Those
mean,
for-profit prisons are filled with a lot of minorities.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, those numbers, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers, right?
So how do you fix a problem with law enforcement in the U.S. when, for example, my wife watches these shows on YouTube called Live PD? It's basically like cops, except a little more, not as, it doesn't seem as staged. It's more like ride-alongs with a camera guy. And there is definite profiling going on. And
For sure.
when it's flamboyant on television shows about cops, how do you change? Because it's looked at as normal. People are looking at this as normal.
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't be normal. But it is normal.
It absolutely shouldn't be normal. There was a video that came out, another video that came out last week of a kid who, I believe, rolled through a stop sign or something. And they pulled him. I don't know how long they had to follow him to get to his driveway, but they pulled him over in his driveway, and they came out with their guns drawn, right? Get down on the ground, screaming at him. The kid's in tears, laying on the ground going, I'm scared, put the gun down. His grandma comes running out of the house. Like, that is not how a traffic stop is supposed to start.
Nope.
You don't start a traffic stop. You don't say he blew through a stop sign and then jump out of your car with your fucking holster or with your gun in your hand. It just doesn't work like that. Like, there's a fundamental
at least not
problem
where I
in
come
how
from.
we're looking at things. Like, yeah.
Well, but
I've never been stopped like that.
But the more they allow it, and the more they allow stuff like that to go on, the more it is normalized.
Mm-hmm.
And people just go,
Well, you're right.
That just happened. Okay, whatever.
But you're right. There's that buddy culture too of sticking up for one another, right? Of covering up for one another, of destroying evidence or fudging reports and that sort of thing, which is really quite gross, because it comes down to a whole notion that there was a lot of discussion about, and I don't want to turn it back to the POTUS, but there was a lot of discussion about this some time ago with some of those White House staffers when loyalty was being brought up, or even better was the Don Cherry incident, where everybody ripped on Ron MacLean for his lack of loyalty. Well, in my opinion, blind loyalty is a pretty severe character flaw.
Yep.
Because you have to have a mind of your own. You have to be able to discern when that person, despite however loyal to them you are, is doing something that you find morally repugnant, you cannot remain loyally attached to them, right? Like it doesn't seem like that hard of a concept, but I mean, a lot of people seem to think that loyalty above all is more important than anything else, and
that's how the mob works. Yep.
makes no sense to me.
Yep, that's how organized crime works.
Well, I guess maybe that's why.
And if you don't follow the rules, you get a cap in the back of your head. So let's try and swing it back to sports for a second. Ross says, I think Colin Kaepernick has gotten more respect because of this. Doesn't mean he's going to be welcomed by the NFL anytime soon. Of course, he's not going to be welcomed back to the NFL because he was fired by a bunch of rich, out-of-touch white dudes, including ones who still have their football team named the Redskins. Enough said. But I do agree that he's certainly getting more respect, and I really wonder what's going to happen when players start kneeling this year. If and when they start playing, because it is going to happen.
Eric Reid's response to Goodell was quite rich. It was Songs of Sympathy or something like that, whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah.
Part 2.
It's I don't like Colin Kaepernick. Let's try and stick on that for a second.
Sure. I got a lot to say about Cap.
He was basically trying to point out exactly what has continued to happen since he started.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't want to say right-wing, whatever, media, blah, blah, blah. Some side was able to switch the channel from police brutality against young black men.
Disrespect for the anthem.
It's disrespect for the military. Because you're
which
kneeling.
Has nothing to do with the national anthem.
Nothing to do with the national
absolutely. Anthem. I agree 100%.
But there's some very good people working on spin, and there's a lot of people that seem to be very easily blinded by spin. If anybody who watched what happened today in Washington still thinks that that is an okay thing to do in 2020 in America, the home of the free, then I don't know what channels you're watching or what you're watching, because it's scary when you're pulling out laws from 1807 in order to clear out people so you can do a very wacky photo op in front of a church playing pretend with a Bible. Not sure. Heath probably wants to be on the show with all my Trump bashing today. But
I was thinking, yeah,
I don't care. I don't care who it was. It could be Barack Obama. It could be Jesse Ventura. It could be Michelle Obama. If they were doing the exact same thing, it is disgusting and it's scary and it's a very slippery slope for my American friends.
Absolutely. I don't recall. I mean, the National Guard is one thing. But if you're calling in actual military troops, I mean, is that something that's ever been done in a democratic country against its own citizens before? I know it's been done by Trump's idols, all the despots and dictators.
Well, it's a very dictator thing to do, for sure.
Yeah.
It's right out of the dictator playbook. It was crazy. It was all... I don't know if you got to watch it today, but I watched it live.
No, I didn't actually get to watch it. I was otherwise occupied at the time. But...
Well, for some reason, I like to hear what this bozo has to say. Sometimes it's entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So they say he's going to be out at 6:30 Eastern time. And there's all these people who have been peacefully protesting for 7 days in Washington. You see all the cops, they're up by this fence. They're quite a ways away from all of these people. You see Bill Barr, or whatever his name is, the justice guy, out there. He's checking out everything, looking all over the place. Then they all leave. 2 minutes later, all the cops move right up to the protesters. And then about 5 minutes later, the police just start ramming these protesters back. Just smashing them. Tear gas, rubber bullets, everything. And then we're going like, what the hell's going on? Then he invokes this thing that he's
So
allowed.
that's why he got booed.
Right. So now he invokes this 1807 law that allows him to do this. And that's still okay, whatever. Okay, so he's trying to show he's tough on crime. But then you find out that it was also he could go in front of this church to make this weird kind of photo op, which they're going to say that's why he had to do it. I think it was all to play in with this, I'm a powerful man and I'm going to lay down justice, and if you don't listen to me, you're going to go to jail.
Mm-hmm. So then...
And that's where we are now. Not one word of like the injustice of what's going on and why people are protesting, and maybe you want to talk to people and try and calm down your electorate. No, let's fire him up.
Yeah, no, it's such an inappropriate response. When you see something like a global pandemic coming along, you think, wow, now they've really got into a spot where they could be truly affected by such poor leadership. But now you see something like this, and I mean, that almost dwarfs COVID, right? Like, shit's falling apart right before election time on this guy. It's really proven to be not a very successful term.
Or is it? Or is it?
Wraps up.
Or is
well,
it?
I guess it depends on your perspective, right?
That's what I'm worried about.
It depends on if the little guys are crushed in the end, right?
You'd got to think that all these things are calculated, right? You'd got to think all these things are calculated, right?
Well, somewhat. I think Trump's a little bit of a wingnut. I'm not sure he's quite a savant in any way, shape, or form. I think it was just a lucky confluence of things that resulted in him winning, and I truly don't believe he actually wanted to win in the first place.
He certainly wants to win again. But back to, you said you had some things about Colin Kaepernick.
Oh yeah, well, just okay. Like, God love Colin Kaepernick. I mean, he was my guy for a while with my Niners, but at the same time, tremendously athletically gifted and made some plays, but also sometimes struggled to do some of the basic things in the offense, and that kind of frustrated me. And I always was frustrated that we had traded away Alex Smith and kept Colin Kaepernick. I guess they figured he had the bigger upside, but at the same time, I mean, he did fine, but I mean, he was not my preferred guy. Let's put it that way.
Right.
To start with. And after all this stuff that wound up in him being absolutely unfairly and unjustly booted, but after being out of the league for 3 years, when people still call for him to come back, I'm going, guys, you might want to give your head a little bit of a shake. Like, this is getting into the ridiculous territory. Like, give it a couple more years and we'll be into Vince Young territory,
No, I agree.
So, I mean, that
doesn't mean he wasn't wrong.
I love him. I absolutely love him. And I think what he did from a social justice standpoint makes him such a more inspirational person. And I have nothing but love and respect for him.
Right. So this is a good segue into what this show is actually supposed to be about. Because there are certain people that think that athletes, celebrities, whatever it may be, shouldn't speak on these sort of issues. They should just keep their mouth shut, as I believe one Fox correspondent said, just shut up and dribble.
Like MJ.
I think it was against
Republicans buy shoes too.
Yeah. But it's just, what's your thoughts on that? I assume they're probably close to mine.
Well, yeah. I mean, these guys have a tremendous influence over society in general. They get glorified. They get put up on a pedestal. They get put up on kids' walls. You know, everybody dreams of being like them. People live vicariously through them. They are tremendously powerful, and it means a lot what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they sometimes need to think very carefully about what they say, because they don't necessarily
Sure.
realize the gravity
Sure.
of, or the weight that what they say carries.
Right.
But I think, yeah, when you have a pedestal like that, I don't know if it's necessarily your responsibility, but it's absolutely your right to use that pedestal
That is my.
in ways to create good, right?
I think, why can't you? Why can't um is somebody gonna go back in time and say, Muhammad Ali, stop speaking out? You're just an athlete. I'm sure he did. But we look back in history, and sometimes these people, athletes, celebrities, what they had to say was very important. And luckily, they had the soapbox or pedestal to convey to a large number of people that there's really an issue going on, which might not get pointed out without their pedestal, right? Like, to me,
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a right to say anything. Us half-wits
For
on the
sure.
show, whatever,
Yeah, you can say
whoever,
anything,
can
think
say
anything.
anything you want. You can think whatever you want. There's a couple things. Whatever you say, there's always consequences to what you say. There's consequences to kneeling in protest in the NFL. You probably are not going to play in the NFL that long, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And that doesn't mean that somebody should tell you that just because you're an athlete, you shouldn't say something. Or just because you're a celebrity, you shouldn't say something. Even if what that coming out of your mouth is ridiculous, you still should. And I wish more people would. Because too many people are worried about what they say too much these days, that it's going to affect their livelihood, like Colin Kaepernick, because you stand up for something.
Well, I mean, you look at it, even a guy like absolutely insane wingnut like, um, sorry, what's his face? Damn Yankees guy, Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent, yeah.
Um, I still respect the hell out of him for
Mm-hmm.
making his or stating his piece, right? I mean, he speaks his mind, and he has an opinion, and he shares it,
I don't agree
and
with
he's
him.
passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with him at all, but I respect the hell out of him for the passion that he has for it.
Absolutely. Everybody has a right to speak. But it's more this, because of whatever your occupation is, that your voice has less weight. I guess that's more what I'm kind of, because it was somebody said that to me earlier today, that insinuated that maybe athletes' voices, they should just kind of sit there and be quiet. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's right. I think that what you do as an occupation shouldn't devalue or value what you have to say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I think if you look at the in terms of teams, I don't think in most sports teams you'll find a whole lot of overt racism. I mean, obviously there's going to be guys who think one way or the other or whatever, but
Which
I think
sport?
for the most part, most sports teams generally become pretty close. I know on most teams that I've ever been a part of, that's kind of the whole point, is it becomes, you know, us against the world. And I mean, yeah, there's some guys that you like more than others, or some guys that you like less, but I mean, it's all of us together, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
all a part of that, and that's the whole point. And so I don't think you'll see a lot of overt racism necessarily in the teams, but where you see racism running rampantly is the absolute dearth at the top in black leadership, right? There's very few black coaches, very few black owners, GMs, and as long as that's the case, when you're talking about speaking out, athletes speaking out, I think what they're doing is almost in a way protesting against, or if they're trying to stop them from speaking out, it's more like, I help me out here. Uh,
I'm not sure. Well, you need more. I think if you want to just kind of flip it back a little bit to the law enforcement too, I think it's the same thing. You need more black and minorities in higher places in law enforcement. And the same as in sports. I think if those people are in those places, you're going to change the culture more.
right. And that's where I was going with that, was that in essence, when they're trying to silence these guys, it's these rich white owners are almost being reinforcing the fact that they own them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dance.
Yeah. Shut up
Entertain
and
me.
dribble, right?
Yep.
Or get that son of a bitch off the field.
Exactly. Well, I don't know about you, Matt, but do you have any more on the topic?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Give me some more.
So, okay, well, next angle I really want to examine is there have been some mass gatherings recently. Not necessarily in the traditional form of gatherings, but there have been some people in some pretty damn close quarters recently, and I don't think I've seen lots of masks and stuff like that, but honestly, I don't think when you're in the middle of getting tear gassed and shit, you're worrying about washing your hands and staying 6 feet away from people. And I'm sure that this thing is out there lurking, and it's almost certain to get worse. And I'm really curious as to how that may or may not affect the talk in the last week or so about the NBA and NHL getting increasingly closer to return to play plans.
Interesting. And what are your thoughts? Do you think that
was pretty much it. I mean, I truly expect that we're going to see some increased numbers. I don't know you can't necessarily guarantee that it's going to be everywhere that there's protests, right? But I would suggest that several of the places where there were protests, we're probably going to see increased outbreaks. As to whether or not it's going to affect their return to plays, I'm not exactly sure. I suppose what I was kind of curious about, I was reflecting on this earlier today, and I was wondering if any of the players themselves may have been involved in any of these protests.
yes, there were players.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Players
Because
that traveled great
some
distances
of them have
to join
been
protests.
making great points online and on Twitter and stuff like that, but I wasn't sure I'm thinking if Halsey can be out there, a receiver in the NFL, it could be out there, right? Like, it stands to reason.
There
so
are basketball
if that's
players
the
I know
case,
for sure that were out there.
well, and there's a group, if you want to say take one league that probably is taking the lead on some of the racial front. That would probably be it.
Just like Ross says, most of their players are black.
Well, and they seem to encourage their players speaking out and standing up for justice, as opposed to telling them to sit down and shut up.
They're a much better run league than the NFL, without a doubt. When it comes to those type of things, the NFL is all about protecting the shield. It's a perfect Trump type business. It's loyalty. Protect the top at all costs.
It's a brand.
At all costs.
It's a brand. The shield is like the Trump name, right?
Yep. Do whatever you have to.
Yeah. So. But yeah, that was my other musing, was that I think that's going to be a very unfortunate side effect.
I don't think it's going to affect either any of the leagues that are going to be starting up, because I have a feeling there's not going to be any or many people in the stands. I don't think the number of spectators is their big worry right now. They've seen the UFC be successful with not having anybody live watching the events. It's the CFL that's going to be the one that's going to be screwed.
Right.
But these other leagues will be fine. They'll figure it out.
That was my specific thought was, just with respect to, excuse me,
COVID. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I said it.
No, it's definitely not COVID.
No, you'd have to have left your house in the last 4 months. Matt was so worried about COVID, he started in December. Just kidding. No, but hey, on a lighter note, I've got a little video I want to play for our fans out there. And it's mostly,
Sure.
it was for when Heath was supposed to be here, so it would have been a lot funnier. But it's, remember we talked about it, talked about it a few weeks ago. Barstool, Mr. Portnoy spent a cool $250,000 to watch a football game with Mr. Goodall. And
His arch enemy.
And well, it really didn't go how he had planned. So just for fun, we're going to close out the show on something a little more fun. But it looks like the game ain't happening. But
no game for Mr.
out.
Portnoy.
All right, emergency press conference. We all knew this was fucking coming. I'm out here on the Riviera, sunshine, trying to get my tan on, having a good time. NFL auction experience background check. Mr. Portnoy, we want to update you on the background and criminal check that was conducted on you in conjunction with your bid on an NFL auction 3136325. That was, if you're paying attention at home, that was $250,000 to watch Monday Night Football with Roger Goodell. Won it fair and square. It was an auction charity. Based on the background report, you did not pass the NFL's background check. What did they say I did wrong? I falsified NFL credentials to gain access to Super Bowl LLII opening night in Atlanta in 2019, followed by police detainment. After being informed by police that you were banned from entering Mercedes-Benz Stadium, site of Super Bowl LIII, you defied the police directive and attended the game. Criminal trespassing at 345 Park Avenue, that's NFL Commissioner Headquarters, where Roger Goodell said he would talk to the media at all times. He did not. He had me arrested like a coward. An arrest at 2015, 345 Park Avenue, posting nude images of a player's 2-year-old son on the Barstool website in 2011. First of all, me and Tom Brady are like this. The kid had a fucking howitzer, and he was like the Gerber baby. And if you can't handle a big dick joke, then get a fucking sense of humor. Your credit card will not be charged. You won't be charged. Everything's deleted. The NFL will donate the amount of the bid to the 6 nonprofits. So Goodell's out. And we knew it was going to happen. You have cowards, you have mega cowards, and then you have Roger Goodell. Don't let me win it and come up with this. Oh, you did the research on me? You don't have to do the research on me. You got a file on me the size of an eye. People like, oh, Roger Goodell will play ball. He'll like make himself look good. I've told everybody, Roger Goodell has no self-awareness, no sense of humor, doesn't know how to deal with the brain like this, and he can't be like the funny guy, like, oh, wear the clown shirt. He can't do it. He's the least funny human of all time. He's a yes man, he's a puppet, and he's a coward, and this proves it. So $250,000 to charity. I want it fair and square, and they say no. Why? Because they're afraid of me, they're afraid of the brain, and they're not going to have some fun with it. So fuck you, Roger Goodell. By the way, don't do charities and let a guy win it who you don't want to win it. That's on you.
That was awesome.
And that, you know what? We're going to try and bring Heath in here. Apparently he wants to join.
Yeah, I got to say, I don't know much about Mr. there. I'm not a follower of the Barstool or anything at this point, but Heath did make us aware of it. But just from what I've seen of him, just mostly from that video and a couple things I've heard, he is a fucking douche. I would love to see him and Goodell in the same room. That would be awesome.
That's what I've heard.
Heath! Oh, he was there for a second. I saw him.
I'm trying to find him. He's around here somewhere. Nope. Don't know where he is.
There he is. He's right there.
I can't see him.
He's in the circle.
In the circle of
But
life?
I don't hear him.
Going on, bitches.
There you are.
Well, I
Can you hear him,
can't.
Kyle?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, there they are. I found you guys. Nope, that's not
Good
you
news,
either.
buddy?
Good news.
I'll get you eventually.
Yeah.
Good ending?
It was a total Robert Kraft type ending. Very happy.
Oh.
The happy ending. Yes. But not in the same, for the same reasons. But yes. All good though.
Oh well. I can't find
Right
I can't
on.
find Heath, and now I've lost Matt, so we'll just talk to them, and you won't get to see them. You'll get to see Heath's smiling
Via
face.
telephone.
Yeah, via telephone. The boys are here now. So Heath,
Oh,
yeah,
good. Now I can take my pants off.
we just talked. We just showed the video of your buddy Portnoy and his response to getting his winnings canceled.
Yeah.
What do you
Called
figure?
it.
Oh, it's pretty
We all-
funny.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was hilarious, but somewhat predictable. But at
Very
the same time,
predictable.
it's like, when's Roger Goodell been a man of substance?
That is true.
It proves out exactly what Portnoy calls him to be or professes him to be, and we all got to see it firsthand. So, not a shocker, but it was pretty awesome. I think even with it being canceled, Portnoy would he would tell you it's still worth the $250K.
Of course it was.
Just for the.
It's worth every damn penny. So, yeah. Anyway.
So Heath, we mostly talked about what's going on in the States right now with the craziness.
But we
The
solved
chaos.
it. We solved it.
You
We're
did?
now in a post-racial world.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now that you've solved the United States' problems, move on to the world peace, end child hunger. We'll have nothing to do next week.
Well, we'll figure something out.
We'll start a rumor just to have something fun.
So, well, we didn't talk about any sports really, any sports happenings in the last 7 days. So, do you have anything to add?
I mean, the focus is really, even on the athletic side, is there's a lot of athletes, pick your sport really, who've all been focused on commenting on this in some way. So that, even sports related, it sort of leads into that. There hasn't been any news on any front in terms of what's happening progress wise to getting any sports league back and moving again, right? So
Well, the
You
NBA,
keep hearing little updates that the wheels are moving and we're getting a little bit closer. We're getting a little bit closer.
yeah,
But yeah, you're right.
nothing
There's
concrete.
never anything
It's all
concrete.
hearsay,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So even when the NHL came out and had their big plan, we have a plan, but we don't have a date.
yeah.
Yeah. The only
But
thing I've
at
really
least
noticed
that's
in the last
realistic.
the only thing I've noticed in the last week though is that they'll test them every day. Well, I didn't hear you say that initially, but I just kind of assumed you would because, well,
I'm pretty sure I heard that
why
one,
the
actually.
fuck? Yeah, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, why the fuck wouldn't you do that? Like,
Mhm.
it's not earth shattering by any stretch, right? So, I'm interested to see when the CFL camps actually get rolling again, because there are a couple places that said they would be willing to let practicing start in their province.
I think Winnipeg
So
right,
it's
is the
sort-
only one.
Yeah, well, and our clutch assassin with the words there, Mr. Scott Moe.
Oh God.
Did you see that response? They need
Yeah,
to
he
practice.
rips the defending Grey Cup champions for being
You know,
bad. Timing,
the
is
amount-
everything.
The amount of crap that any political leader is going through with the pandemic, at least, somewhat of a sense of humor still intact to take a shot like that was kind of refreshing on its own kind of level, like I'd be go ahead.
I would be absolutely horrified if we had a leader of any political stripe, a premier, who didn't rip on Winnipeg and the Bombers. So It makes me. It gives me identify. Then it helps me identify as a Saskatchewanian, right?
Yeah, it's like turn in your Saskatchewan card. You can't live here anymore. You got to rip on the Bombers or leave.
Yeah, pretty much.
Totally agree, Maddie. Totally agree. Yeah. It's a rite of passage. But yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty easy to pull all your goddamn hair out with all that's gone on and the confusion of it all.
Hey,
so
Jeff.
Good on him. It was a good shot. It was a good shot to take because it was there, right?
Well, like I said, though, I mean, it's all about timing, and it's not exactly the best time when it's the Grey Cup champions. But I mean, we do know they'll fall right back down to earth again this year, right? It'll be another 30 years.
They're going to be the champs again this year.
We're going to beat them on. Yeah, right. We're going to beat them on Labor Day anyway, so that's all that matters.
Oh, so season opener.
Season opener. Yeah. Let's see.
We'll
but well, and to kind of lead that into the States, that like, you know, all these protests and everything else going on. What pandemic? What social distancing? Seems it doesn't matter a whole lot anymore.
Well, we discussed that a little bit too. I'm expecting some surge in numbers in some of the places where there was some protests in the next couple of weeks, I would assume.
And bigger centers seem to have a bigger problem, right? So,
well, and what I was wondering is if any of these athletes that might be involved in any of these return to work plans were out in those protests. And Kyle said yes, he thought that
I
some
believe
of them
there was a few basketball
were.
players that were in protests. Yes.
So
J.R. Smith.
Maybe that's the only way I could see, Kyle, it affecting the return to works, right? Is if one of the athletes maybe got sick, right? Or maybe multiple athletes got sick, then that could potentially impact things in an unexpected way.
Well, and I mean, they kind of were talking about it, not so much from the chaos and the riots, you know, but even if they did get it at some point when the season did resume again, they've got to have a protocol and a plan for it, right? So, you know, at least maybe it was somewhat discussed would be, you know, my estimation of it. But J.R. Smith, he was out there and he pulled a guy out of a vehicle. I think it was his own, I believe, and shit kicked him right there in the street. Like, you know, so he's not signed right now, but I'm not sure if the Lakers are going to sign him now when that video surfaces. But at the same time, shit went sideways and he beat the crap out of a guy. And given the circumstance, you know, shit went sideways and the other guy did some shit, so he answered. So, you know, all's well.
Just so much ugliness right now. It's so hard to watch.
It is. And you know what? The thing that pisses me off is it's all a pretty well-known fact that race relations there are a very tense situation at the best of times, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole thing, the peaceful protests, you know, and honoring the man who lost his life, like it all goes twisting in the wind and it gets kind of trampled by the chaos and the riots, which have nothing to do with it anymore.
Nope.
There's people that just want to watch the world burn.
Yep.
And they're out there pulling shit. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with, you know, getting a solution. They're just further advancing a problem, right? Like,
well, what you have to keep in mind, though, is it's not even necessarily like a whole bunch of purposeful bad actors, although often that is some of what goes on. But it's mob mentality, right? And I mean, that's what happens sometimes when you get in big groups like that can get out of control. And once one little thing starts rolling, you know, it's like a snowball going downhill and things start to escalate. And it's not necessarily like it doesn't necessarily make this protest bad or that protest bad, but I think that has a lot to do with why often protests do end so violently or so
Well, and there's a few extreme folks within it that want to take it that way, and they just drag along some of the other participants, right?
Sure,
And
but exactly, like it's not like this is all a bunch of, thugs out there causing violence, right? It's a freaking mob mentality, and it happens in big groups like this of all kinds. Look at soccer hooliganism. It's in the fucking Wikipedia, right?
Right. But I mean, some of these guys are thugs, though. That is, to me, fairly obvious in the fact that some of these guys are out there doing shit, that would get you arrested. You can't just go in and burn a church down. You can be upset with the police, but don't burn the precinct down, because in a week when you have a problem, you're going to maybe need them on your side. One bad apple isn't the entire, entity sort of thing, right? Like, there are good cops. There are good cops.
Of course there is.
And there are good protesters.
Exactly, Maddie. But I mean, there are a few of these thugs at the front of the wagon pulling all the other horses behind them too, right? So
sometimes,
to me, like burning shit and breaking, just completely destroying a target, that kind of thing. And a lot of it too is they are ripping apart predominantly black communities.
Those are people taking the opportunity to cause damage that would probably be doing it anyways.
Right.
They're not part of the protest, but why do they
race relations?
Why do they get linked with the people who are standing up for something? They're not the same people, but it gets linked. They're not linked. People breaking into a building and stealing as much as they can have nothing to do with the people who are protesting.
Well, and the Black Civil Rights Movement was always peaceful protest. Martin Luther King, he did not condone this behavior. Like, you are doing an injustice to the very roots of that whole movement. Yes, it still needs work, but honestly, ripping apart a community that needed the help to begin with is no way to advance anything. Like,
nope.
The black community wants to get ahead. They want to take a step ahead. They want better relations. They want to be treated better. How is burning down their neighborhood fucking helping them?
Because those aren't the people who are trying to make change. They're the people who are trying to cause havoc to the people who are trying to make change.
And when their whole neighborhood's pissed off, then where do they turn? Then what do you do, right? You've put them further behind. And I don't understand it. The media pretty much tries to push the protest and the chaos and the looting. They're trying to push it all into one story and say it's one thing and it's all because of one thing and get everybody to just run with it. And we all know it's not, I'm very much about democracy and liberty. You guys know that from some of our after show debates with politics and stuff. I don't have to
touch politics today, buddy.
But I mean, I'm a firm believer in that if you want to protest, you have every right to protest. That's a democratic right.
Sure.
We don't always have to agree on what you're protesting about. You don't have to agree what I'm carrying a sign for or what you're carrying a sign for. I don't have to agree with. But I will defend to the end of the world your right to do it.
Yeah, no, you're
Everybody's
absolutely allowed to think and speak like a jackass.
And I do on occasion.
If you so choose.
Right.
It's your choice.
What pisses me off is the narrative that gets pushed on people all the time, that you have to be all in or all out on this stuff. We even saw it here in Canada with the CNCP rail, all the rail protests. I had no problem with them protesting. I had problem with them protesting on private property. You can protest on public land all you want because it's your land as a part of the public, right? So take out that criminal infringement on private property. They can still protest, though. Fill your boots, man. If you want change, and lots of change comes from protest. And some of the laws
civil
that
disobedience is
changed,
part of protest, buddy.
And civil disobedience sometimes does involve law breaking.
Mm-hmm.
When I refuse to get up off the highway and move, when I refuse to move off of that public place, that's civil disobedience.
Holy crap! Did you see that frickin' truck come flying onto that bridge?
No, I didn't.
Squirrel.
Jesus! No, I thought that was what you were
I was
talking
thinking the
about. There
same.
was somebody in the middle of the goddamn road. It's a crowd of people. There was a closed bridge, and this truck came flying in like a fuel tanker. And then
Just
like barely stopped, and then fucking got swarmed by people, and he got pulled out of his truck and beaten, and then they took him to hospital, and then they charged him with going in.
Did you watch CTV
it was
News?
closed. No.
Were you watching a story on CTV about Federated Co-op and the Unifor guys? Did a fuel truck go through there? Or
No.
this was in the States though, or what?
Yeah, this was in, I believe, Seattle.
Oh,
Seattle?
Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's not good. That's not good for anybody.
Nope.
So, but yeah, just kind of to just finish my point though, it just
Sorry.
the fact. No, it's all good. It's all good. Squirrel. You can have civil disobedience, but when you start breaking the law in an extreme fashion, like burning entire buildings down,
Well, for sure. Those people aren't protesting, though.
You've crossed a fucking line, right?
Yes,
So
but
it's not a protest
those
anymore.
people are not
No.
protesting. The problem is, the people protesting are getting lumped in with those other people.
Right. And lumped in
so
by
they're using
media.
They're using the law against the peaceful protesters, saying they're all a part of these other people. Guilty
Right.
by association.
And which sucks for the Black community that's trying to advance their and louden their voice, right? To get some justice and to strive for better relations. It's being completely sabotaged, and it baffles me, but
Hey,
I
Derek.
mean, I think it was just the match though for a collection of fuel in the fact that we come out of a pandemic and everybody's a little tense. Everybody's
a pandemic?
fucking worried for 2-3 months, right? So it's sort of like a bit of a powder keg, right? Everybody's edgy.
Very much.
So they not saying that they would have went this far normally, but it was an abnormal time. And
This
I think
is just the
some
restoking of a fire that's been smoldering since the last time.
right. And it
And
just
the time before that.
Exactly.
right.
What has changed?
So, well, and that's sort of the thing. Like, everybody talks about Kaepernick and he kind of brought the light to this whole issue,
this
right?
time, yeah.
No, he didn't.
But I mean,
He is one of many who have brought
Right.
the light to this, right? Like, this is not a
for
new
sure.
thing.
For
Fucking
sure. But I mean,
Jesse, or what's it, right, with the glove in the Olympics?
what was
and,
that?
like, this has been a while.
Yeah.
Owens.
and it's every generation seems to have their one guy that sort of
Right.
starts it up again and becomes
why?
the poster child for
And
it.
why? Because nothing's changing. Nothing
Well,
changes.
and-
Because it's required.
Yes, it's
Well,
required.
it's
Nothing
required,
changes.
right? But I mean, you gotta keep pushing though too. But I mean, even Kaepernick, if you look back at some of the stories when he first started doing that and what he was saying, and just see in 5 years what it's been hijacked by the media to become, what they wanted to say,
Yeah,
what
we
they
talked
wanted
about
to
that.
involve. All of a sudden, it's not really just what he said; it's what a bunch of other people want to spin into it, And it takes away from actually making progress on the thing he wanted to make progress on.
Right. It
Catches him in a middle position.
No,
right?
it's doing to him exactly what society has done to black people. It's taking their voice away.
Or most voices of dissent, they try to take their voice away.
Right.
It's cancel culture time, man.
Which is why you
Like,
need civil disobedience sometimes.
Not gonna argue.
Sometimes you need to stand on a railway track and stop a train. Sometimes you need to stand in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like-
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do.
Sometimes it's just as simple as giving up a multi-million-dollar football career in exchange for doing what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Or profiting more so on the other side of that argument. Kaepernick didn't stop making money.
Yeah, but I don't think he's making the
He
money
didn't
he
stop
was
making that
making.
football
He will.
money. Yeah. So, My
Yeah, but
only
if you
issue is
lost
in
your
that-
if you lost your job, Heath, you'd go find another job to make money, right?
for sure,
So that's
sure.
isn't that what he did?
But well, he did. But then also at the same time, I was fully in the camp that he was honest in his intentions of wanting to come back, holistically honest in his intentions to come back. And the thing that kind of shook me a little bit and second guessed him was just the mere fact that when he had that latest workout, he changed it last minute.
Last second, yeah.
He was screwing around and everything else, right? And to me, it's like, why would you do that? Like, it was self-sabotage.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that
concerned.
looked really bad.
Right?
Absolutely.
Thought
Why
that
would
was
you
handled well.
self-sabotage? To me, maybe it was just to keep on being the poster boy. Because there's really nothing to talk about in terms of his wanting to advance that agenda anymore if he ends up back in the NFL. It's just going to be
Maybe he
got
doesn't
back in
want to
the NFL.
embarrass himself, though. Like maybe
Maybe he just wants to
realizes-
stay with his cause, though, too,
Maybe
right?
he understands, though, deep down that he's not really what he once was, right? Because, I mean, he hasn't played for, 3-4 years now?
Over
6,
4.
8, 10? I don't know. It's been forever
It's
now.
over 4. Yeah.
You guys discuss this. I'll be right back.
I mean,
Okay.
Jesus, the Niners have been to another Super Bowl since he fucking became the first Super Bowl losing quarterback, right? For the Niners.
Right,
So,
for the Niners. So, I don't know. It's just, I'm not saying, like, he's a complete fraud. I'm just saying there's a little bit of a question mark there all of a sudden when that kind of went down for me. And you're kind of like, dude, like, what's really going on here? There's multiple layers that not even the media is getting it. You
yeah,
know?
no, that was terrible optics.
And-
But I mean, I wonder if maybe it was self-sabotage, right? I mean, like, because I mean, if he really understands deep down, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to present that opinion that I've got this ability to still perform at this level, right? And I can go out and maybe put on this show and make people think that, and then I don't know. I think it was so much more about just optics than a real opportunity, and I think on both sides. I think it was about Kaepernick trying to present himself as still being attainable to try and present that. I don't know. There's so many people who are still clinging to that idea that for some reason he should still get a job, and it's not. Despite how cute it would be or how poetically just it might be, it's just not going to happen. Like, he wasn't one of the best quarterbacks when he left the game. I'm sorry. I was told Kyle, like, when we were on earlier, that, like, when I was really disappointed when we traded away as the Niners, Steve Smith. And I get that Steve Smith is more of a game manager, but I like that kind of style. I'm a big believer in coaching and systems and simplicity. And
Alex Smith was efficient, right? Like,
I loved the way Alex Smith played. And Colin Kaepernick gave me so many heart attacks. And he was kind of like Dion Phaneuf, big play potential, but big liabilities too, right?
Live by the sword, die by the sword, right?
Exactly. But that's the thing. You get big plays, you get excitement. So, like, I mean, I get it. It's just, so, I mean, he wasn't one of the best players when he left, and it's been forever. So you can't tell me he's going to come back in and make a reasonable contribution in the league, despite the fact that people are saying, well, you got to tell me that Colin Kaepernick's better than X. Maybe Colin Kaepernick 4 or 5 years ago was better than X, but Colin Kaepernick is becoming an old man who's been out of football for an extended period of time.
I've got two words
and you
for
don't retain your skill level at the same level the entirety. Yeah. But for me,
and he's not getting better when he's not playing.
Right. And rightly so. And going 4 years plus with no contract, it's definitely the reality of the situation. He's not as good as when he left, right?
No, he's never going to play again. That's
Cam Newton isn't employed right now.
2 years, you could maybe make the argument after 2 years he would be as good as when he left or could regain that form. But at the same time, 4 years, yes, I'm still to this day, I'm adamant he got blackballed.
No, absolutely he did. He got fucked.
Yeah, he totally did. But I mean, after a couple of years, you're kind of like, okay, now the way that the media works, he's very intimately aware how the media works, right? How it plays him in multiple ways, in multiple angles to whatever audience they want the clickbait from. that after 4 years, he's probably not going to be as good of a quarterback. He needs the attention to draw from the NFL in any way, shape, or form, including that workout, to draw attention to himself and now his cause. He decided, I think, to go with his justice and his agenda over his NFL career. But I think his NFL career at that point had basically been short-circuited. So now he's doing the hair toss.
Matt's killing me, man. He got his headphones caught in his hair. And now I don't know what he's doing.
Was it that
I got a small problem.
You got a small problem? Well, we can't help you with that small problem.
There we go. How's that?
Oh, you're back.
Now I'm just on speakers. My headphones died.
Well, that means the show has been on long enough.
Yeah, well.
Well, it just means I'm not going to get my hair caught in my headphones anymore.
True.
No, it was on the phone part, right? So I could hear you guys, but it was super quiet.
No worries, man. No worries, Mr. Man.
No worries.
But I think that is a good way to end the show anyways.
Yes, yeah. I think afterwards, Heath, you need to go back now and watch
find this fuel truck.
Or listen to the first part of the show when you weren't here, and you can leave all your rants and dissenting opinions in the comments.
Dissenting opinions. You just assume automatically I'm not going to be able to agree.
What's that?
There might be some things you don't agree with.
We've agreed on a few things tonight. I add a little extra on it, but as do you, right? So it's all good.
For sure.
I was actually thinking.
I'm just saying, when you go back and listen to the first part, I'm pretty sure you'll have a dissenting opinion or two.
It's all good. We all have opinions, right?
We do.
We're allowed to
all
voice.
entitled
We're allowed
to our
voice
opinions. That's right.
I love that you have one.
That's
the main thing.
If you disagree with me, I will kill you.
I will bring out the army.
All right, Antifa guy.
All right.
We have the green Antifa. It's called Rider Nation, right? Isn't that how it works? Or no, I wouldn't associate the two. Doesn't do each other justice.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Anyway, I was actually thinking of if I ended up getting on here in time, if I could read a Martin Luther King quote.
Nice.
Before we ditch out of here.
That seems to be the perfect way to end it. So we'll just Heath will read your quote, and then we'll sign off the show. It sounds like a perfect way to end it. Love it.
Okay. So Martin Luther King. So darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King Jr.
Very great words.
Terrence Floyd, the brother of George Floyd, spoke today at the protests in Minneapolis via bullhorn and pleaded with the people to be peaceful and yada yada, implored love, and I can't give you a real good summary right now, unfortunately, of exactly what he said, but I would absolutely recommend you go dig it up, just read a quick summary or find a video of it. It was absolutely inspirational to hear the brother, the guy who's ostensibly at the center of all this, to be so composed and together, and quite inspirational.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Will do.
Well, till next week, everybody. We're the Above Average Joes. I'm Kyle, and with me, as always, is Heath and Matt. And we'll see you next week. Laters.
Laters.
Laters.